see if I can smooth this out. I am the son of a preacher. So my daddy always said, he said, boy, I see you up on that podium delivering the word to the world. I'm pretty sure he had a different word in mind. But I feel like what I do now was no less destined. But I'll start you at the beginning. My first recollection of knowing that I'm Gullah is actually in retrospect. Because Gullah Geechee people, when I was growing up, and for the most part before we had the benefit of the outside lens showing us ourselves, we didn't really identify as Gullah, we just were. It's in a sense like fish don't know that they're swimming. They just are. And my first time, I hope I can say this, what I'm about to say, my first time remembering my first Gullah words, it was Sunday. I won't say the pastor's name, but it was Sunday, and after church, and I had to go to the bathroom. I'm a little kid, begging mom and just answering, boy, keep your skin still on it. All right, I'll hold, but I could not wait any longer until after service. After service, I don't know if the church is like this here, but there's always the long-winded pastor, you ain't even preached today. We already heard the word, but here they come with the long benediction. And so I finally formed a beeline to the bathroom, but the pastor was in there. So now I'm answering at the door, and mama just telling me, hold on. Finally, pastor come out, and after church, that's when all the grown folks, get together. The kids go do whatever they do, and grown folks get together and convene after church. And so pastor come at the bathroom, and it just so happened to be that's where everyone was convening, right near where the bathroom was. So I run into the bathroom, and just as fast as I went in, I ran right back out. And mama said, boy, and I thought you said you had to go to the bathroom. And I just stand, and I said to my mom, I said, Mama, but he tinky in ya. She said, what? He tinky in ya. I just kept, what, boy? He tinky in ya. And at the time, I had no idea. What I was saying was, it stinks in here. But in Gullah, we use E universally for it, her, him, she. It could be a person, place, thing. It's gender neutral. If I ask, is the mic loud enough? E loud enough. How's the event? E going good? You see the new baby? Wait, look, E cute, You can use E for virtually anything. So there's my E. In certain instances, we drop the S. So my tink is no different when they say, when they turn up over there in the corner, turn up, stand up. We drop our S's in certain words. Een comes right back around. Een can be in, ine, don't, I ain't know. In any instance, because E comes, we have this thing about E, comes back around again, and ya, for here. And so in that moment, I don't have the self-awareness to know that I'm saying something different. I'm using another language. In linguistic terms, they sometimes, well, often infantilize Gullah speakers by referring to it as, and most Creole speakers, as referring to it as baby talk. That it's not a fully developed language, it's just baby talk. And in a sense, the argument is, we'll listen to the way that the children speak, and it doesn't develop over time because it's not a fully mature language. When in actuality, what's happening in many instances is what we're calling developed is conditioned. At some point in your life, and it's a process that begins before we even get into school. You learn. In that moment, I learned a valuable lesson, but it had nothing to do with language or vocabulary. It's social etiquette. In that moment, it was just social etiquette. My mother didn't say, "That's not how you say that. That's wrong." She's shut your mouth, but that was for a different reason. Hash your mouth. And so it's important that when children begin to find their voice, that's encouraged. Because at that age, they can very seldom tell the difference between when you're correcting what they said and when you're correcting them. And in many instances, the latter is exactly what's being done. My next memory of identifying as Gullah was in school. And I happened to be bused at a school that was predominantly white. There were only a few black kids like myself, and we were not from where the school was. And the teacher would hold up the cue cards or the cards of, I don't know if you remember this in grade school, there would be a picture of an apple, a picture of a car, like the little cards of things. And I'm eager to get involved. I'm nervous because I know I'm already not really fitting in, but I want to show myself. And she holds up a picture and asks the class, "What is this?" I shoot my hand up. "That's a tomato." "Excuse me?" That's a tomato. Let me rephrase it. "That's a tomato." I'm sorry, one more time. "That's a tomato." No, it's a tomato. And I'm like, "Yeah." And I just say that. I said, yeah, that's a tomato. In that moment, lesson number 2, we often soften our T's to a round sounding D. So latter would be ladder. And many of the like, shut your mouth. Boy, shut up. Most of the D's would get rounded off to this T-like sound. A T would get rounded off to this D-like sound. I didn't know that in our language, we were doing something different with our consonants than what was being done in standard English. I could understand her clearly, so I didn't know what the disconnect was. And so that's when I started realizing, oh, this is what it's like to talk black in a white power structure. A power structure that is not designed for you, but was fundamentally created by you in this twist of irony. It could not exist as is without you. To this day, I would say that of the most traumatic experiences, the experiences that have made the biggest impressions on me, they are related to 3 things: my race, my economic status or class, and education. But education was the one that blindsided me. Because we idealized teachers. They were almost like your second parent in a way. By the time I was in the 3rd grade, my diction was perfect. And I didn't learn it from my teachers. I had learned very quickly to enunciate, how to code switch, in linguistics, they'll sometimes call it like the decreolizing of a language, where it just reverts back to its lexifier and loses its qualities over the course of time. It folds back into itself. What's happening there isn't, in many instances, we're code switching. We call it code switching but it's really being bilingual. Nobody told me that. No one said, hey, you're an intelligent kid who has learned by 3rd grade on your own to speak 2 languages. What they said was, this one was bad in the first place, and you've finally improved yourself. You've bettered yourself. You've perfected not sounding like your mama. You've perfected not sounding like your daddy. The less you sound like your own people, the better off you are. I've had people tell me, say, I can't believe Harvard done got you up there teaching them people to talk like slave. So in your mind, you find more pride and dignity in sounding like the half of the equation that had a choice in slavery. The one who could have opted out. That's the half of the equation you want to sound like. You feel more pride in sounding like the enslaver than the enslaved. But you don't notice the irony. And why? Because normalization is more powerful than exceptionalism. If I got up here and did something so amazing, so incredible, that you couldn't relate to it, you may applaud and, yes, that man is something else. But you wouldn't aspire to do it because it's unattainable. When we see Usain Bolt, when we see him running, I mean, well, he's this tall and that long and he runs that fast or whatever, and he's built for it. We can't do that. But now, what if you see the man who fixed your refrigerator, about 5'4", 235, beat Usain Bolt in a foot race? How much of us would be out there with some new tennis shoes like, man, I think I could do this racing thing. I might have a chance. Because you've seen something normal achieve an exceptional thing. And so if I can just get you to say, well, that's the way he is. I've accepted it as normal now. You be like that. You'll never do anything about it because you've accepted fat meat greasy. That's it. You've accepted that. And so that's where it's hidden in academia. All the slick little languages we use, the phrases that we use that mean, even in patois, there's a slight backhanded quality to the word patois because there's an inference that it's inferior. English is basically like the magpie of languages. It steals from everything. English take a little bit of this from that. Ooh, yeah, yeah, let me get that. Local, oh, I'm gonna take local. Deja vu, all right, let me have that. To the point when somebody says, oh man, I'm having a case of deja vu. Nobody thinks of it as a French word. We've just normalized these words as English. So tell me how come English get to be a language that derived. We always derive from something. That derive from other languages. Yeah, Romance Latin, Germanic languages. But nobody, when was the last time you heard anybody speak of English as a derivative of any kind of, in the context of a Romance Latin? When you ever hear that? But we gotta be Creole. Always something to signify that you ain't pure. You a combination of something and something else. Well, if y'all a combination of something else, French and all these, I find Arabic in this language and Portuguese got a little bit, everybody borrowing from each other, everybody derived from something. Then how come you got to come up with a term for me that mean I separate from the rest of y'all if y'all separate from each other? Where your label at? But we accept it. We accept it and we go with it because These people make the rules. And someone told me when I was younger, be careful. They told me the story, the first time I heard the story of Prometheus was actually, I didn't know right away why they were telling me that, but it was an educator who was telling me the story of Prometheus. I was into mythology as a kid. I was about 7 years old and just thought, mythology was interesting. They told me the story of Prometheus as an anecdote to tell me, don't get too biggity. That's what that's. You can kind of tell when somebody telling you don't be biggity. Don't get too smart. This little one, done correct the teacher one time too much. He ain't like that. So now comes the story of Prometheus. And I thought about that, and I said to myself, what is the motivation? What makes an adult look at a child and you know good and well I'm saying tomato. You know I'm saying tomato. And to correct them anyway, even though you understood. If I say, this guitar, is a piano. Now, of course, there's a piano right there in the hallway. Y'all know this ain't no piano. But if I say it's a piano, and we all agree it's a piano, somebody walk through that door and say, hey, who guitar that is? Man, you can't see that's a piano. We've created a new norm. We've created a new reality. It is now a piano because we say so. Most of what we are talking about in linguistics, we're not talking about science. This is not fact. It is a structure that we came up with, and we say it is what we say it is. It's self-affirming, and therefore it is. And my daddy said, when the most important thing in the world is the word, you crack open a good book, what's the first thing you see? In the beginning, even the word. So make sure your word is your bond. Make sure your word, you stay true to your word. Find your voice. That's where your power is. And that's where I was a student who was brilliant but bored. That's what I was told. I ain't that bored. I just don't like you. Why didn't somebody explain to me the difference between when I say duh, and ga? Well, you know what it'll do. That one there to do that all the time. I'm saying that because my da is creating my past tense. But because it happens all the time, it is a present progressive. That's how I'm using my da. Well, I'm gonna go to the store. My is my present tense. I am currently going right now. Well, what you could do? My ga is my future tense. Nobody said, oh, there's a system to the way that you speak, and this is what that system is. Kid, you're not stupid. You ain't dumb. I'll tell you who dumb. But it's not you. But since I don't know that, I can only sit there and be shamefaced. Because I don't have a defense. I can't tell him why, if I say, why we drop our T, why we drop our H after the T. That girl there, that gal there, that boy there, and why le and de both being there. But fluency insists, in a sense, we insist on making one word flow right into the other. So depending on the consonant at the end of the word that came before it, I may say te, de, ne, all eh. And they all mean the same thing. But who explained phonology to me? Nobody wasted time telling me about phonemes and allophones. Who was going to tell me that? Someone should have. Because Gullah is not only a legit language, as legit as English and any other language, it is not a remix. In music terms, you are familiar with a remix. The remix can never be separated from the original song because its whole identity comes from the original thing that came before it. And so if it's a remix, well, James Brown used to do some remixes that were really just rewriting the whole song and use the same hook sometime. But if it's a remix, then you're always a version of the thing that came before it. So imagine that your whole identity and every word that comes out your mouth is a version of something someone else has ownership of. How can you find your voice? How can you not feel as though you're pantomiming what someone else has instilled in you? I felt alone. But I ain't know but y'all. Ain't nobody explain no, I ain't never hear no Bohemian. I thought you were talking about Bohemian, like them hippies. You know what I mean? Something like that, like that Bohemian Rhapsody, like the Queen song. I didn't know nothing about them, but I know people keep asking me what island I'm from. And they ain't been talking about Walmart Island or James Island, John's Island. They been asking about the Bahama Island. How come people keep asking me if I'm from the Bahamas? I ain't know nothing about no Bahama. You know. And then I said to myself, well, there must be something to this. Because if they keep asking me if I'm from there, I wonder if they asking them if they're from here. It'd be like one of them Star Trek episodes with the parallel universe. You know? And so that was the thing is, in that moment, that's what happened when information is confused with education. We got a lot of information. We were told about the Revolutionary War, but we were not told about the loyalists who left and came here and brought with them Gullah people. Gullah people who sound like this young when they crack teeth. Now you think it's a coincidence that all these years later, I can come here and sound like one of y'all? I get off the plane at the airport, and it was, hey, Bo, you can't record in here. I had my phone out in the airport. He said, no, you can't record in here, Bo. I said, okay then, Bo. So, what kind of coincidence that is? People, it occurred to me, wait a minute. So we don't sound alike. We don't, you know what I'm saying? We ain't similar. We literally the same people. We family. Y'all can come to my house and get something to eat. I'll put your name in the pot. But I didn't know that. The only people I see sound like us was maids and servants and the slow poke step and fetch it. The happy-go-lucky Uncle Remus. Or a criminal or some sort of misfit or miscreant that they've scripted in the movies to associate the way that we sound with those attributes. So you tell me what you want to sound like. We start learning the code switch, not because we're bilingual, not because we want to be able to communicate with people more fluently in a language that they can understand. We start code switching, and sometimes we even do it by ourselves. I'll watch a movie and I'll see two Chinese people speaking English, and I'll be like, I don't understand. If this movie happening in China, what are they speaking English for? Now, of course, the movie maker only doing that so I can understand what they're saying. But when we talking to each other, it only take a few minutes. If you in the room and you in the room and you in the room and we're all speaking this way right here. Hey, how are you doing? How's the University of Bahamas? I love your campus. Great, what are you studying? Is that what's your major? Fantastic. And all it takes is for somebody to say, in it though. I hear that. I remember I was on the phone trying to get customer service to work up a situation with my cellular phone. And I was talking to Sheila, and Sheila was explaining my plan to me. And she said, and if you want, I can even add at the end here, I can extend it a little bit longer if you want to. And I say, word? She's like, yeah, child. Both of us been black all the time. Sometimes all it takes is for one person to give the other person permission to let their hair down. And we all go back to talking the way we talk. Give yourself permission to use your voice. The problem isn't when academia, it's not that there's something wrong with learning a system of speech. There's nothing wrong with learning so-called standard English. It's the standard part. That's what's wrong. The idea that this is the default. And there are times when I may be talking to you and sound this way, and somebody will come in here and say, oh, you're saying that wrong. You're saying, you need to correct the way that you just say that. But all I said was, you need to correct the way that you just said that. That's better. It's the exact same sentence. Fundamentally, structurally, grammatically, it's the exact same sentence. You're no longer correcting my grammar, you're correcting my culture. And I say this because education and teaching, instructing is a beautiful, it's one of the, and cooking, I love cooking. It's one of the most giving things you can do for a person is instill news they can use in them, to give them information that will grant them access to better things in life, to give them something that they can hold on to and enrich themselves. And it doesn't matter if it's something that is highfalutin, or something as basic as teaching them how to fish, literally how to fish. I know people who are great philosophers, people who are great technicians, people who are great storytellers, but they don't have a degree. And we've created a structure where if you don't have a degree for what you're saying, hash them out. What you don't say don't count. Wait for somebody who got a degree to say the same thing you say for us to, brilliant. There's people, let me tell you something. If I had this here on my chest, look at this one, yeah. Going all the way over there talking like that in front of them people. But in their minds, that's the pinnacle, in their minds of education. But I just walk through the door and Mozart start automatically playing out the speakers. You know, I drink my tea with my pinky out. And now I can say the same thing. Instead of we here at Harvard, I can say, well, we round yard Harvard. Oh yes, listen to that Gullah. It's so melodic, you know. But then walk through the door, the man off the street. Oh, you gotta tighten that up. These are not facts. It doesn't have to be this. There's a class war in many instances between the educated and the higher educated and the lesser educated. Some people go off to college and they dread coming home. Because Lord knows they done learn a whole bunch of stuff. They done learn that ginger ale ain't medicine. Oh, Lord. And now people looking at you like, you fool. And you dread coming home because now you know stuff. You've left and seen things. You've heard things. You've heard philosophers and gained this knowledge, this information. And not everybody's on that same page. So as soon as you open your mouth, this one y'all think they know so much. Oh, look at this one, yeah. And you start to feel alienated and you feel more comfortable around more educated people, and then there's the divide. Because we're not even talking about the education. In that moment, it's no longer about the education anymore. Many of these people have negative associations with their own education and academia. Many of them do. Well, I don't want to say who it is, because if I do, it'll start a whole warfare between all the parties involved. But I know someone who was told in the first grade that he's not book smart. He should work with his hands. And he failed the 7th grade. He passed the first grade, was doing fine. But after that, it was just, why bother? Because someone that I really respect as an educator has told me, nah, you're not going to do it. So now, if I understand. No, I don't want you to be like frantically deleting it, you know. Yeah, mess around and delete your whole phone book contact list. It's all good. I got you. You know, if somebody who is in, if Jane Brown tell you can't dance, you can't dance. There's some people that if you look at that person and you respect their position, their word is heavy. And you will carry it like a stone. And they did. And so when you come back with your diction and all your big words, you are showing a proximity, a close proximity to the thing that has hurt people. It ain't even about you. And so there has to be a reconciliation in the process. You can do both. I can acknowledge there is absolutely a benefit beyond measure to getting not only an education, but an education in a structured environment that can duplicate the same or similar results again and again and again. Because it occurred to me, well, I'm teaching Gullah as a language, and Bohemian English is so interchangeable, and to the extent that there's studies that talk about the origin of the language. And it says here, in regards of the studies, by Stephanie Hackert and John Holm, in talking about the language, it says that the language are not only siblings in the sense that they are similar, but that Gullah and Bohemian are indeed extensions of one another, your family. Yeah, am I still saying Bohemian? Yes. Man, listen. I can't get rid of that bull out of Bohemian. Bohemian. At least I call y'all Bahan. But I be Bayesian. Gracious God, I done butchered the people's name. hey, this is the breakdown of your language. These are how we use, verbs and adverbs, and these are this. Break it down in a structured way so that they can then, in a learned way, pass it on. Give them a defense. Give that little boy, Bohemian boy, and Bohemian girl, the ability to defend themselves when they are called stupid. Give them some information to work with. We do not have to have a rift between the higher educated and the lesser educated people. Most of that is not driven by intelligence. It's driven by attitude. We don't have to do that. I met a man who was my Uber driver. I should have said something else because I don't really take Uber no more. And he was a scientist. And he had invented this really important mechanism, had a patent on it, and a very enriched life, a fulfilled life. A very accomplished man, put all of his kids through university, and here he is driving an Uber. And I had no judgments about that. And he had no judgments about it. If I did, he wouldn't have been interested in my judgment anyway. But I had no judgments about that, and he had a sense of peace. But he said that many of his peers wonder why he just walked away and did his own thing. Why he didn't feel the need to keep staying on the wheel and, doing more and more and more and more and more to prove himself. And he said, that's not why I got into education. That's not why I wanted it. And it occurred to me, I want the knowledge. I want the information. I loved knowing things as a child. Y'all got some. Who was I talking to? I was speaking today with someone, and I said, I using an example. I said, top running name. Cause if you fall down and bust your bunkie, we gonna see now. We can see. They said, whoa, y'all got that word? I never hear nobody else say that word nowhere else. And that was my first response too. I'm like, wait a minute now. Y'all got that? Do you know how massive it is for a kid to know that they're a part of a bigger diaspora? That they're not an alien after all? That the way that they're speaking is valid? That the language that they're speaking is actually a language and not just a remix of another thing. It's not baby talk. It's not just a dialect or a code or jargon and slang. They get me with the slang. So that is what I'm saying is there's a thing that I feel like we have to do because we live in a situation where your parents, your grandmama that used to whoop your tail for sounding like that, knows that in a case in America, a person who was a suspect in a crime said, no, I want my lawyer dog. Okay? What did that man just ask for? A lawyer. We can all agree that he asked for a lawyer. His Miranda rights were violated, and the judge said that it was fair for the police to do it because he asked for a lawyer dog, a canine attorney. They took what he said literally, remove the comma between lawyer and dog, and said this is a real case in a court, that this man said he wants a dog that practices law. Now, what kind of mess that day? You know that, but see, the thing is, they know that's the world you go out in. Big Mama don't want you to go out there and get him up because you asked for a lawyer dog. That's what they don't want. Hey, I saw the whole island today. She took me around. I said, how are you doing? And so that's what they don't want. So let's, and even when the shame quotient say, oh, they're not always shame. They might like the way that they talk. When I told Mama, when I talked to my mama, and it's the most beautiful thing because there's two pivotal moments with my mom as it pertains to language. And I remember a long time ago when I was in the back seat of the car and I was talking. And mama turned around and said, look at my baby talking all good like that. Now, hey, mama, hey, booby, what you doing? So I just around there, I ain't been doing that. I've been just calling to see what you've been doing around there. Oh, well, holding on. Okay then. We get off the phone. All right then. Oh, my mama, I gotta go to, yeah. But you talked to Junie? And that's, okay, 10 minutes later. Okay, all right then, 15 more minutes later. About 45 minutes in, okay then, I ain't gonna hold you. Let me go in here and put these greens on this stove. And that feels like hugs to me. It's like linguistic hugs to me. I'm so glad we arrived to this point. My parents, they ain't getting no younger. And so to have that, to be able to speak the way she spoke as a little girl with my mama and my daddy, to have that back in our lives with no stigma attached to it, has had an exponentially positive and fulfilling feeling on me. Our language for many, many years has served as so many different things to so many other people. There's been a renaissance before in the Gullah Geechee language. People have studied it before. It just wasn't us. And then when one of us finally did, with Renzo Dow Turner, and other people who were among us, then the validation starts to kick in. But for many years, our story was being told from an outside perspective. I read some of the books that were written and transcribed some of the way that the enslaved or formerly enslaved people spoke. Now, I know from the region that they were interviewing these people. I know what they most likely sounded like. And so there's one passage where they would say that, that this person had 3 daughters, and the youngest daughter's husband died, but they said, he husband. And when I'm reading this, I know that doesn't make any sense because you just said that the youngest daughter, and now you're saying he husband, referring to the daughter's husband. And I knew what happened in translation. They didn't say he. What did they say? E. They said E. And the person just wrote it down as he. Because these books about us weren't written for us. So there's no need to worry about making sure that the language stays intact when you transcribe it, because the people who you're speaking with are not the intended audience for the book that you intend to write about them. So write it in a way that the intended audience can read. And that's what's important now, is we have a chance to capture our own story in our own voice. With the ability to communicate, I was able to do a couple things for my parents. And one of those things being, my grandmother passed away, my father's mother passed away. And I had gone through this space where my mother was having heart palpitations and my father was having possibly cancer. He was so secret squirrel. My daddy's so old school, he'll be like, oh yeah, I just had a little heart attack. What kind of low heart attack? Well, Daddy, where you at? And I'm out in L.A. and trying to go there and make it, and I'm across the other side of the country. So, get a call from my brothers. Daddy had a stroke. So he's in the hospital. So I see if I can catch a red eye or something to get back over there. I said, well, let me talk to Daddy. He can't talk right now, but he'll call you later. I said, I finally talked to Daddy. I said, all right, Daddy, what going on with you? He said, oh, these people around here are making fuss over nothing. And, man, you ain't got to come all the way, all that. Well, Daddy, where you at? He said, well, just ask for my name. I'm in the oncology department, in the oncology wing. He said, I said, what? My brother's like, yeah, he in the oncology department. Boy, do you know what the oncology department is? What that is? Daddy in the cancer ward, boy. So I said, Daddy, you can't be giving me the information like that now. You gotta be a little bit more upfront. They say something in my blood. And so that's what it's like trying to get a medical report from him. And Mama been having heart palpitations at the time. And what happened was, I had a situation happen with my car, and Daddy gave me some advice. I needed power stand fluid. He said, oh, don't put no power stand fluid in there. Just put some STP oil treatment in there, and it'll work. I said, Daddy, I don't need oil treatment. I said, power stand fluid. The power stand is and I tell you to put the power the oil treatment, STP oil treatment in the power stand thing. What I tell you. And pulling around the corner, it worked. And in that moment, I pulled over on the side of the road and cried. I just poured out because my car was steering properly. And the reason I couldn't contain myself is because I was like, what if my daddy wasn't here to tell me that? That's when it hits you. It's not so much when the person dies, which is the initial shock or whatever. It's when you start seeing parts of your day missing, parts of your life, pieces that would have been filled in by them, gone. In its own way, I don't know how to feel about my education sometimes. Because I love being able to communicate well. I do. I love knowing things that many of the kids in my neighborhood probably wouldn't have known. Artists, songs, things that were of interest to the other neighborhood. But I'm conflicted about how I came to acquire those things I love. And this is a piece called There's a calm in the streets tonight. I lifted my fist in the midst of the rain to fight, but then came sunlight and my fist bloomed like the bud of a rose. Like the blood that once rose from the wounds of the men, women, and children in the south side of the Congo, in the east side of Charleston, the north side of Ireland, from Catholics and Protestants I realized was all red and warm, cooled only by the elements. While you seek relevance, the ivory of elephants is used to create keys on grand pianos that we use to score schemes of themes of peace with our fellow man, or score and scheme a piece from our fellow woman. And what a cruel irony that deep inside of me, I nourish the acorn that is destined to be the mighty oak tree, with branches strong enough to hang strange fruit on, or a tire string for my daughter one day. Branches long enough to hold a treehouse for my son, or be chopped down and processed at the mill to build a real house on the very same land where it used to be a tree. This is the order of nature, the nature of man, the master plan crafted by the master's hands, the same masterful hand that crafted that perfect smile of yours. There's a calm in this place tonight. And right here, right now, all under the sound of my voice, we've made a choice that this moment is about more than the expensive drinks in our glasses and the ones that we can order. When out there, right now, is a child without water. In Somalia, in America, you know the usual suspects that we see on TV every day but never connect to. Though we are all connected, but must accept it. Like dots that create a picture of one voice going into one mic and traveling through one cord and into the PA system and out through the wires that reach the speakers and amplifies and projects that one voice as it ricochets off the walls, the ceiling, the floor, glass, brick, wood, fabric, steel, the flesh of the person standing next to you, and into your ears, to your mind and heart. Thus connecting your mind and heart by way of your ears, to the flesh of the person standing next to you, and the steel, and the fabric, the brick, the glass, the floor, the ceiling, the walls, the speakers, the wires, the PA system, the one chord, the one mic, the one voice, the one poet, that one child with no water that I saw on TV. And I could make it rhyme for you or say it like this, if it'll make you feel more comfortably that this is poetry. Though my technique is a bit unorthodox, because you see, poetry is no more about technique than technique is about poetry. It is the energy that creates the synergy that is connection between you, her, him, and me. And it seems to be that that is the order of nature. The nature of man. The master plan crafted by the master's hands, the same masterful hands that crafted the adorable way you tilt your head down and slightly at an angle when you're flushed and feeling bashful, humbled by these words. There's a calm in my heart tonight. And when I think of you, I think of myself as a child. I was maybe 3, no more than 4. And my dad, who was a construction worker, came home, and I rushed to the door to meet him. All I could hear is his truck pulling in the yard and the smell of exhaust and a combination of concrete perspiration and Remington aftershave as he walked through the door. All us kids would yell, "Mama, Daddy home." And she just said, "Well, praise the Lord." Sometime he'd save me a piece of his sandwich or juice from his thermos. But today he gave me a button, a big gray button about the size of a Kennedy 50-cent piece, with a string looped and tied through its center. He hooked his index finger into the end of each side of the string, and he spun it forward, and then he pulled the string, and it began to spin even faster backward, and I was fascinated by a button on a string given to me by my daddy. A good man without much more to give than a button from his winter coat, that in the dead of winter he'd rather give it to me and bring warmth to my imagination than to sew it back onto his winter coat and bring warmth to his own body. Perhaps this is the order of nature. The nature of man. The master plan crafted by the master's hands, the same masterful hands that crafted my love for you. There's a calm in the world tonight. Shh. Thank you. And I ain't gonna hold you. But there's 2 other pieces that I wanted to do for you, for they're significant and culturally significant. And there was a song, we were talking about it today, Obia. We call it root. Okay? Root work is when sometime if the man ain't really as interested as you want him to be, and he need a little assistance making up your mind, you make him a little dish. Give him something to eat. Now you follow the storyline. This is probably the first room I never had to explain the actual song. Song for. Met her first time at the open mic. She said, "Man, if you ain't an open port inside, yeah, my name and my number, wanna know what you like. I'm a recipe not to show the light. She been looking kinda right on my usual type. Low on the chubby side, but it won't keep in tight. So if she said, maybe I can feed you tonight, all I could say was alright. But that woman put a root on me. Lord God, she put a root on me. Hey, root on me, and you can bet your life I should have never messed around and eat that red rice. But then there's my daddy verse. If my daddy told me once, he did 1,000 times. Son, get yourself a gal, but not the Creole kind. And I said, in that moment, I want to use these colloquial terms so bad, but I don't know if y'all have them here. But right. What he's saying is, there's some gal in this community that's more likely than others to tamper with your food. He said, that root don't work unless it get in your belly. And so that's what he was saying. So they're listening to the song, my daddy, and he heard a part when I talked with him, and then I even put a little Bible verse in it. You know, the good Lord made Adam and the good Lord made Adam and he treated him right. Give him power over everything and even his wife. Tell him everything you need you can have from me. Just steer yourself away from that apple tree. Well, if God know everything he had to see, old Gally gave Adam man a strategy. Been the same for all men since this happened, because we may be serving of the Lord, but our true masters is Eve. Root on me. Lord God, she put root on me. Hey, root on me and you can bet your life I should have never messed around and eat that red rice. And thank you. And people be like, I don't get it. What's wrong with red rice? You know, an interviewer asked me what was the deal with the red rice, and I explained what the situation with the red rice, and they said, well, maybe we won't include that one. But and the final is actually a song that harkens back to my childhood, and I wrote a song about it called Beast of Burden Blues. I don't really usually play standing up, but like I said, if y'all go to church, this is the part where I say, well, the Lord laid on my heart to do this, and if I mess up, then just take it for love. It's dedicated to the land, the people who are on it, the memories that we have made. It is from there that I hail, that I came here by way of there. Time will never run all out of sin. Even when mankind ran out of plans, it's alright. What's meant to be will be. But it's a long and dusty road to walk in shiny shoes with no souls, with no souls, with no souls. She thinks she done found a better man. I say she's just found another man. It's alright. What's meant to be will be. It's a long and lonely road when your heart's a heavy load, heavy load, heavy load. Beast of burden, these are my beast of burden blues. Ooh, beast of burden, these are my beast of burden blues. But it's a long and dusty road to walk in shiny shoes with no souls, with no souls. And it's a long and lonely road when your heart's a heavy load, yeah. Heavy load. Beast of burden, it's all my beast of burden blues. Ooh, beast of burden, these are my beast of burden blues. Thank you. And now this time I actually am not going to hold you. I'm going to go ahead and relinquish the microphone. But I appreciate you. Thank you.